Today we got two masters of ice and cold going head to head. Captain Cold versus Sub-Zero. Who comes out on top? Well, let's find out.
Eyes up. Stay sharp. Stay down. Final warning. I could do this all day.
Captain Cold, Leonard Snart, is a villain in DC Comics. Snart is the ruthless and intelligent leader of the Rogues, a criminal team operating in Central City, and he wields a cold gun used in their crimes. Cold doesn't really have any noteworthy physicality, also doesn't have any superhuman powers or abilities. He used to have pyrokinesis after he fused his DNA with the cold gun, but this was later stripped away from him by Deathstorm. But Snart's greatest asset, or really his only asset, is his cold gun. This gun can create temperatures down to absolute zero, and is capable of completely inhibiting atomic movement. The cold gun can do a variety of different things, and is actually a very dangerous weapon. It's been able to freeze an entire skyscraper, completely freeze Wally West, injure Superboy, and has been able to counter Kid Devil's fire breath, and even counter Superman's heat vision. It can create a cold field, a force field of sorts that can stop bullets in midair, and it's been said that only flashes can break through the field. The gun can also create walls of ice, create icicles on the ground, create frictionless patches of ice, and even create icicles inside somebody's body. They also wears this pair of snow goggles that are designed to limit the glare from the gun and allow him to see clearly while he's firing. Snart is also a skilled leader and tactician, and his careful study of the cold gun has given him some mechanical engineering skills. He's able to completely rebuild his gun from scratch. That's what we got in one corner, one of the Flash's most iconic villains, Captain Cold. But in the other corner, entering the ring straight from Mortal Kombat, Sub-Zero. Kua Liang, better known as Sub-Zero, is an assassin in the Mortal Kombat series. He's the younger brother of Bi-Han, who was the original Sub-Zero and assumed the role out of respect for his fallen sibling. Being a descendant of the Chiromancers, Sub-Zero possesses power over ice and has the ability to generate it and manipulate it in many forms. His go-to attack is an Ice Blast, where Sub-Zero freezes opponents in place, allowing him to follow up with his second attack. He's also able to freeze multiple people at the same time, freeze people while they're in mid-air, and freeze thick metal doors solid with just one blast. He's also able to freeze the floor, causing enemies to slip and fall, and even slide across the battlefield by presumably freezing the soles of his feet. He's able to create dangerous ice weapons while in a fight, create giant hammers, ice daggers, and swords almost instantly. These weapons can actually hold up to normal steel weapons, and even combat against Scorpion's fire blades. One of Sub-Zero's most iconic abilities has got to be his ability to create copies of himself out of ice, or ice clones. If an opponent touches one of these ice clones, they're instantly frozen. You can actually throw them at enemies as projectiles, or shatter them and send out the ice shards to injure people. He can knock people back with an ice blast, and even create ice armor and ice shields around himself in order to protect him from incoming attacks. These shields are even so powerful that they protected Sub-Zero from massive explosions before. Sub-Zero also has absolutely no problem killing opponents, even doing it in rather brutal fashion. He'll freeze people's insides and pull out their organs. He'll deep freeze their body, then shatter it into pieces, or even just tear out their spine, crush their skull, or rip them straight in half. So, who wins? Well, let's break it down. Now, Captain Cold and Sub-Zero are both some of the most iconic ice manipulators out there, so it really does just make perfect sense to throw these two together to see who will come out on top. And what's interesting is that they actually manipulate ice in different ways, making for a real interesting fight, but we'll circle around to that later. Right now, let's talk about physicality. Now, Captain Cold isn't really that notable when it comes to physical strength, although he has been able to kick down doors, beat up cops, punch off frozen body parts, and actually throw Mirror Master through a solid wall. But Sub-Zero has got him way outclassed, like just by a massive margin. He's bust through thick metal doors and walls after freezing them, destroyed its stone columns, and actually ripped through metal, actually strong enough to destroy the ground just by landing on it. Then Sub-Zero is kind of famous for his finishing moves, and that means he's strong enough to smash people's skulls, rip out their spines, rip them in half, and he's even ripped out people's entire skeletons. Sub-Zero is so much stronger. He's also more durable. Yeah, Captain Cold can take attacks from the Flash, but we all kind of know that the Flash holds back when he's fighting the Rogues. But with Sub-Zero, well, he started explosions, taking attacks from Scorpion, who is strong enough to punch holes to people's heads, and even survived being roasted by Scorpion's fire breath, and also survived having Scorpion shove 2 swords into his chest. Now, speed and agility is actually pretty similar between these two. I mean, Captain Cold does make his living off of fighting against the Flash. You know he's got to have at least peak human speed in order to do that. Snart has blocked boomerangs of his cold beams, outdrawn and fired his gun before people like Heatwave and Golden Glider could react, and he's even frozen 3 gang members before they could fire. It's even been said that he could take out 10 armed men before they can blink. Then, probably most famously, Cold has been able to tag the Flash and other speedsters on several occasions before, although that is somewhat due to his cold field, which we'll discuss later. But on the other hand, when it comes to Sub-Zero, well, he's dodged and blocked attacks from Scorpion, dodged missiles coming his way, is actually pretty fast as he uses his ice powers to slide across the floor. So yeah, Sub-Zero is definitely physically superior to Captain Cold, no way around it. He's also the much better fighter. Sub-Zero is actually one of the best fighters in the whole Mortal Kombat universe, and has been able to regularly fight against master martial artists, including Scorpion, who is arguably the most dangerous villain in all of Mortal Kombat. But ultimately, this fight really does come down to their ice powers. Now, funny enough, Captain Cold actually doesn't have true ice powers. He's got his cold gun, which is designed to negate thermal motion, stopping protons and electrons dead in their track. The ice is just a side effect of dropping things down to absolute zero and completely inhibiting atomic movement. That could be why his cold beam is able to hold his own against Heatwave's gun, Kid Devil's freeze breath, and even Superman's heat vision. Because they're not necessarily generating cold, just taking away their kinetic energy. Like we said, the freezing comes in just as a side effect. But he has been able to use this to freeze 3 men completely solid, freeze parademons, freeze and kill the top, and actually freeze an entire skyscraper. The cold beam has even hurt Superboy before, which is just kinda crazy, and really shows how powerful Captain Cold can be. He's also able to use his cold gun to create ramps or walls of ice, shoot out icicles or snowballs, or even create frictionless ice to prevent people from moving. He's pretty fast with his cold gun and creating ice constructs too, creating walls before Heatwave could react, before Captain Boomerang could react, and even creating ice walls before Wally West could react. Captain Cold also just has a natural cold field around him, and just like his Cold Blast, this field negates thermal motion and stops protons and electrons dead in their tracks. This field is also able to stop bullets in midair, robbing them of their momentum, and it seems like only Flashes and other speedsters are actually fast enough to keep their momentum going and move through the cold field. This cold field also follows him around and moves with him. So yeah, Captain Cold is seriously underrated, and he is surprisingly powerful. But Sub-Zero's also got some advantages of his own. Now, unlike Cold, Sub-Zero actually does manipulate ice, and one of his main tactics is just freezing his opponents. Freezing multiple soldiers at once, freezing and busting open massively thick metal doors and walls, and instantly freezing people completely solid. He's able to create ice constructs, creating hammers, daggers, and swords. He's able to create these instantly. They can hold up to normal steel weapons, and they're even powerful enough to hold up against Scorpion's fire. And then, one of Mr. Iconic moves is his ability to create copies of himself out of ice. And he can throw them as projectiles, launch them as a ranged attack, and even just shatter them and send out ice shards to injure his enemies. Plus, If an opponent accidentally touches one of these ice clones, well, they're instantly frozen solid, and Sub-Zero can pretty easily win from there. And just like Captain Cold, Sub-Zero can also create ice walls, and even create ice armor and ice shields in order to protect himself and block projectiles. Then, unlike Captain Cold, who relies on his cold gun, Sub-Zero is a human Chiromancer hybrid, and has the natural and innate ability to manipulate ice and cold. Since these powers are basically ingrained in him, he's actually immune to the cold and to being frozen. Like one time, Frost tried to freeze his hands but failed to do so. Just nothing happened. With a thought, Sub-Zero can also instantly turn his body into ice and become impervious to physical attacks. He can then use this in conjunction with his teleportation, turning into ice, shattering himself, and then reforming at another location. If necessary, Sub-Zero can even decrease the temperature of his ice down to absolute zero, freezing people down to their atomic level. So, who wins? Well, I'll admit there is going to be some conjecture in this fight, because we honestly don't know how Sub-Zero's body will react if he's hit with Captain Cold's gun or enters into Cold's field. Because, yes, it does rob an item of its kinetic ability, but Sub-Zero can also innately manipulate himself and his kinetic ability, like when he freezes himself and then unfreezes himself. He's also able to freeze himself and then teleport, so he could potentially just teleport inside Captain Cold's cold field, because there does seem to be a safe zone in the center, seeing as it doesn't affect Snart himself. Plus, Sub-Zero's attacks might be able to get through the cold field as well, considering that Cold's freeze beam can escape the field, and it should presumably work both ways. Ultimately, I do believe that Sub-Zero is winning here. Captain Cold might actually be more powerful, since his cold gun is something else altogether. But Sub-Zero should be a great counter for this, and he seems to be immune to being frozen. From there, Sub-Zero is the much better fighter, has more versatility of his ice powers, and is so much more brutal and savage that it's not even funny. It would be a great fight, and Captain Cold is a great competitor, by giving the edge to Sub-Zero here. Sub-Zero wins. But what do y'all think? I would love to hear your thoughts. Sound off in the comments down below. Also, be sure hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, join the Fanco army, and I will see you all next time.